This is it. This is who I am. This is just not what the world sees on the regular.
Talk about this is real. This is me.
Mhm. This is what Reba say, a single mom who works too hard. That's yeah. That
Damn,
show is fire.
damn,
First of all, I almost cursed. That show is fire. I love me some Reba. That's
Reba was slept on. I always watched it when I was at my grandma's house after school. That's the only time I really caught it. But
Mhm.
good times, good memories. But yes, we will hop into the conversation today, and it's funny because we were talking right before we started recording. Obviously, we both mentioned before, we are both currently, like in therapy. So sometimes, we be bringing that back to the pod if we think it's beneficial and helpful. And yeah, I had a session recently that it really it didn't catch me off guard, but it definitely was a different approach to our sessions, and I think it definitely got the job done. If the goal was to open my third eye, and get to looking at things from a different perspective. But the theme that kind of stood out from some of the things we talked about, some of the things we did in the session was self-acceptance. And we've kind of been not having that direct conversation as of late, but I think that's been an underlying theme in everything. And I
Mhm.
know that it is not something that I have been the best with, nor does it feel like something I've mastered. But for you, I'm curious. I've heard you speak about being in, a better space now than you have been, in the last couple of years. And while of course, all things aren't perfect, you seem to be in a really good space where a lot of things are settled and feel solidified. Do
Mhm.
you feel like you've mastered, the concept or the idea of self-acceptance, as it pertains to you?
Well, first I want to say shout out to therapy. You said opening up the third eye. I think therapy is great for that. What they don't tell you is when therapy opens up the third eye, it also punches you in the third eye, right?
Yeah.
So now you're like, oh, I got a black eye. Wanda, calm down. Like, don't go there. But yeah, I think it's great. And in terms of mastery of, you said self-acceptance.
Yeah.
When you first said that question, I wanted to be like, yes, absolutely. But my hesitation on that now is that what is mastery of that, right? Because if I get to this mastery level self-acceptance, does that mean like I'm golden for the rest of the time moving forward? Like I feel like if we're going to evolve or continue evolving, then there's some level of new mastery that's going to happen. Um, but my little brain just woke up. So that was like fake deep unnecessarily. To answer your question, yeah, I do feel like I have what this version of mastery is of self-acceptance. I mean, sorry, hell, look at me right now on the podcast. When have I ever showed up publicly looking like this? This is who I am, but hey, I accept all of me, so now the world has to. Boom.
Yeah, no, that's real. And I think mastery is, or the concept of what mastery is and how you define it is key. I think in terms of mastery, I've looked at that in a lot of different ways. And I think I understand the goal of wanting to master, and I understand the grind that comes with doing something enough times and doing something over and over to where you feel like you know it, um, second nature, right? Or that is second nature to you. But in terms of self-acceptance, like you said, I think because the idea for evolution of the self is to be constant, is to, always be happening. Is it something that can truly be mastered? And maybe not, but I know that in terms of feeling comfortable in my self-acceptance, I think I've struggled not in the mastering sense, but I think that I've personally struggled because I think because of those different versions, it's like
Mhm.
which version am I accepting? Or do I feel like I'm accepting an old version when I'm in kind of this new version? So I feel like that's what I've kind of struggled with in regards to feeling like I'm mastering or even just accepting the idea of what self-acceptance looks like for me.
Yeah, I had a little light bulb moment, so forgive the viewers if you're like, what the hell just happened with Donald? You were talking about mastery, and I think I realized that like you do have mastery level things. Like you can be test it on skill and competency in a lot of things and have like mastery expert level, right? But if we're looking at this in evolution, you master self-acceptance, and then the next step is to maintain it. So you were talking about the like, do I master a previous version of myself? If you are still mastering something in the past, you're not doing that currently. Like you
Yeah.
can understand past self, but if you like, ooh, okay, I mastered me last year. What the hell are you doing now? Like now you just back at square one. So like when you have mastery level something, make sure that you are doing the things to maintain it, to put yourself into new situations, to continue to have some level of self-awareness, to open up the third eye, to continue doing all of those things. Like once you I will not give him credit often, but I will say that the one thing that my daddy told me a long time ago is to maintain what you obtain. And I'm like, wow, you came up with this. That's shocker. But it's true, like maintain what you obtain. It's all about sustainability. So if you have this mastery level something here, keep it. Figure out how to make sure that that continues. Um, and I think I've been putting in the work to do that for me. So I can say that honestly.
Yeah. No, that's that's very real. That actually is a really fire motto, slogan, whatever you want to call it. It definitely applies. It's so funny. I think about this a lot more recently now than I have kind of in the previous years. But the first time I ever went to therapy was, I think this was like spring of 2018. So that, yeah, I was 22. So that was the first time I went, right? And I maybe went for, I don't know, a month and a half, probably like 6 weeks. Just because that's how I was set up, like through, school and whatever the case may be. And so
Mhm,
like when I was done or after I had my last session, there was a part of me that felt, and I had like a huge breakthrough in one of the
mhm.
sessions too. So there was a part of me that just really felt like I had figured it out. I thought I had figured out what the ultimate, root of everything was. And not so much that I never thought I would be back in therapy, but I thought I had made this quantum leap, in understanding. And as more time went on, I started to get more and more reality checks of like, no, you did not make the leap that you thought you made. Like that was progress. That was a step for sure. But you took that step and then just kind of stayed at that step, and you still had so much stairway to go, and now you just keep looking up like, why am I still at this step? I
Right.
thought this was a bigger step. And so when you talk about that sustainability piece, I think that that's huge, because I think that it's one thing to, it's kind of the mantra that people say, like when you make it to the top and it's even harder to stay at the top. So but with that sustainability though, what have you found that has made that easy, either easier or just what works for you in regards to how you're able to sustain a level of, whether it's mastery, whether it's a certain level of understanding, whether it's a certain level of confidence, whatever applies? How have you been able to keep certain things sustainable once they reach a level that you feel like is where you want it to be, if nothing else?
Um, it's funny. It's funny that you say that. I was having a conversation with my one of my best friends, Mariah. We were planning, we had an adult summer camp party at my house recently, right? And I was saying, well, I'm not gonna reveal all of that. I was saying something to say, hey, I'm gonna do this so other people can do more, and then I benefit from that. And she was like, oh my God, everything you do is self-serving. And I'm like, yes. Like shocker. Everybody thinks that I'm like the warmest, nicest person in the world, and I think that's fine. That's also true to my brand. Um, but I'm getting something out of it. There's some mutualistic something that's happening in here. So to answer your question, I don't like repeating myself. So everything that I do still has to serve me in some way. So how do I get to this level, realizing that I don't want to do this shit again? I mean, sorry, it's my bad. I don't want to do this stuff again. I don't want to have to go back and repeat myself. I hate double backing. I hate double tracking. I hate having to repeat myself and do these things. So if I can get some level of understanding or mastery of something, I'm like, ooh, I want to hold on to this. And then let me tackle tomorrow's problem. Let me go into doing something else because I'm not going to do the same thing twice, especially if it took all of this work. I'm trying to we talked about this before, rebuilding the house of Qualls. Like I was Humpty Dumpty for a while and people was trying to glue me back together. Okay. I'm I'm editing myself here. But yeah, it was bad. I'm like, I don't want to have to do that again. So let me take these lessons learned. Let me take the bumps and bruises. Let me take the sunshine and rainbows, all of that together and say, all right, cool. I got that check. I'm gonna add this to here because I don't want to do it twice. I'm lazy. I don't want to work that hard. So if I found a way out one time, we gonna do our damnedest to stay out of it again.
Yeah, no, that's very real. And I think for me, like I've started to wonder more why I struggle with things versus being more focused on getting to a particular place. Like I'm focusing on the struggle versus focusing on the goal, maybe, or the destination. And I think the sustainability piece is what is always in the forefront of my mind because the way I view the struggle is if I cannot figure out this struggle, I'll never be able to keep whatever sustainable after I get out of it. Like if I don't know the root of it, I don't know
Mhm.
how I'll be able to necessarily avoid it or how I can just remove it as an obstacle in general
Mhm.
without that type of understanding, which I think in theory, is admirable, but at the end of the day, it's just not realistic because sometimes whatever the root of that struggle is won't be clear to you until after the fact. You might have to truly get through the storm or whatever the case may be before you really have an understanding of what you were struggling with. And then you can find a way to whatever peace you've made with it, wherever you stand after the fact, keeping that sustainable may only come in the aftermath. That may not be something you can anticipate or like be prepared for beforehand. So I'm trying to break that stigma within me as well, but definitely a good point. And I mean, knowing you, I also understand where like I know that you don't like repeating yourself in any facet or form in any form whatsoever. It doesn't matter.
Because
So
I not doing it.
so
Like
when people say you're self-serving though, and obviously, you don't care, per se, but does that is there an aspect of it where like yes, but there's a but in terms of the context being in a particular way, or is it just more so call it what you want, but I mean this is just me taking care of myself or me sustaining this idea of what isn't going to deter me, if that makes sense.
yeah, a little bit of both. I'll go with the latter first to say, call it what you want, but this is Donald, and this is how he's operating. I'm not saying that I'm a wall and I'm super stubborn in that way and I'm just closed off to growth, but how you define me and the language that you use to describe me is what you so choose. I know who I am, how I present, so that's fine. But the other part is I'm not just black and white. Like I live my life in the gray. I'm a nuanced person, so context matters. Um, so yeah, like you may call it self-serving and or some people may reference it as self-serving and that has negative connotations to it, but um, I got to protect me first. I'm looking out for self, right? So, am I going to get something out of this situation? If the answer is yes, say what is it or how much? Is that self-serving? Man, I feel like self-serving. When people say self-serving, and I didn't have a problem with her saying that. Like I'm not beefing with that phrase because yes, and anything, any situation I am in, trust I'm getting something out of it. You might not see it, you might not understand it, but if I am somewhere connected to something, doing something, oh, best believe Donald's getting something out of it in order for me to be like, cool, I'm not wasting my time, energy, or anything like that. Um, but when you say self-serving, I feel like it excuses, removes, absolves the other parties involved. It's like you don't care about them and it's with malicious intent. And it's not. But I will aggressively protect me because that's what I need to do. That's what I now know to do. And that's kind of the path I'm at moving forward. So yeah, it's all nuanced things, but it's interesting that you say that. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I was just like, I've always gotten along with people. I've always kind of been in the in crowd, but still not felt like I fit in because I fit in everywhere. I can fit in everywhere. My strengths are also some of my insecurities, right? I'm adaptable, but that's a great skill to have to say, hey, you're adaptable and you can fit in anywhere. But then I've always started to feel, and this is stuff I've worked through, or working through, but I felt like a jack of all trades and a master of none. It's just like some people have the thing that they are known for, right? But my thing is it kind of feels like everything.
Mm,
Like I know enough in everything to be dangerous, but I am no expert in one thing.
yeah.
Some would say like that's a good thing. Well, the flip side to that is saying like, damn, where do I exist? Where do I fit in fully for real? And it's just like you get 5% of me, y'all get 37, you get 12, and all of these things are true. So I'm like, how do I navigate this? So in those things, that's why I kind of like laugh at the self-serving type of thing because the majority of that equation still has to be me. You only get part of me, but I have all of me all the time. So in self-awareness, self-assurance, and everything like that, like I'm I'm viewing it from that standpoint for myself. Right or wrong, that's how I'm living my life.
No, that's real. Definitely giving the vibes of I'm leaving here with something. Okay, I'm leaving here with something. That's all I kept thinking about.
Get your hands. Yeah, I'm leaving with something.
Definitely leaving with something. You know what? Honestly, this is given like training day unk. You know what I'm saying? It just
It very much is.
you said you had an adult summer camp party. I'm just imagining you probably was in the party drunk yelling King Kong. King Kong. Y'all will be swimming in Pelican Bay when I get
I I very was much a party of one. I was Juke Slide came on. I was the only one up there just having a ball. Just yeah. No,
that's
wow, that's funny. It's definitely given. Training day unk is wild work.
but no, something you had said though when you were talking about the idea of just the whole idea of how you viewed self-serving and how obviously it comes with context, but also
Mhm.
it just is what it is because you can't control how people define you. It
Right.
made me think for people that I won't say go out their way, but for people where it's more innate for them to be selfless, where it's more innate for them to operate from a standpoint or a stance of wanting to give or wanting to sacrifice or wanting to make room for other people in whatever context. Do you
Mhm.
feel like being selfless is overrated?
Being selfless is overrated. No. No, I don't. I think well, I guess so. I was gonna say I feel like it should be celebrated a little more. So I guess in that regard it is kind of you said underrated, overrated.
I said overrated. I think being
Overrated.
selfish could be underappreciated, like
Okay.
the capacity it takes for those to do that. But in terms of the benefit, I don't think selfless comes with a benefit that a lot of people feel, especially in the immediate. And if people aren't necessarily really at peace with the amount of sacrifice that comes with, selflessness, then I think that can be a struggle for some people. I think I have asked myself, what benefit do I gain at this point from being selfless, given that, since it needs to be celebrated more, nobody's necessarily acknowledging or mentioning the fact that you made that sacrifice or you're allowing other people to take up space where you don't have to, where that's not an obligation. So it kind of feels overrated in the sense of like, yeah, it's this great human act of kindness, but to what end, to what avail? Like, what do you actually are you gaining anything from being selfless outside of okay, yeah, you're being a good human, but in your day to day, when it comes to what actually, fills you up, is that doing anything for you? So that's more so where I was basing the question in.
Yeah, because I mean, if you are selfless with the intent of like people pleasing, it's overrated.
Mm,
But I think the world is one gigantic community, right? If you tap into being selfless, you are now watering the community. You are, I think, thriving as a collective. So I don't think that that's overrated. I think it's underutilized. because everybody is out for self and generally speaking out for self, and then that comes off as selfish. So now you have all these little silos of humans walking around and we just kind of bounce across each other, but we never blend in. So if you can give into selflessness, you can water a community. And I think that's where we are moving away from as a people. I feel like there are certain subsets of people that have very strong community, like family ties. But I feel like as I've gotten older, I'm seeing more like separatism. It's temporary communities like, oh, I like you for 5 hours, or like, let's go and hang out, let's do this, or we can rally together for a second. And it's like, all right, let's cut the lights off, unplug, and be like, don't talk to me for 3 weeks. But we need a little more camaraderie, I think, just across the world. And that comes from people understanding what being selfless looks like, right? It's helping. It's not even a huge lift, right? It's helping others, it's being kind to people, it's having some awareness that other people exist and you are not the only one bulldozing the world.
Yeah, no, and the camaraderie piece is key, and I think that's a really good word because even to the point of understanding, it's like you said, if the idea of selflessness isn't that you are supposed to be at everybody else's will. I don't think that's the idea of selflessness, but that's what it kind of has turned into because like you said, it doesn't have to be this huge weight being carried by one person. If everybody kind of followed the mantra, like you said, okay, I'm not the only person going through something. I may not be the only person going through this or struggling with this. Therefore, even if I'm not directly helping somebody else, just the ability to understand that I'm not the only one going through something allows me to care more, allows me to support more, allows me to understand better. And I think also another layer of that is you get people thinking that these great friendships or these great connections kind of just happen overnight or like that every friendship is going to be a fast friendship. No, sometimes people need to see that layer of, oh wow, they do really understand, or they understand that their experience in life isn't exclusive. They are able to support even if it is in a minute capacity at first. Like that has to grow. That in and of itself has to be watered. But I think a lot of people look at it like, oh, given this one situation or in this first interaction, you're supposed to jump to the moon and say, oh, I'm willing to do this for this person. And
Mhm.
that's just not, it's not realistic. And when it does happen in today's time, I don't think that in and of itself is sustainable either. So I think that's a really good point about the camaraderie and just if there was better understanding across the board, I think there would be room for the idea of selflessness to just make more sense and then also spread out, amongst more people in general.
Yeah, because to that point, like friendships are not great America. Don't fast, what is it, fast pass? Don't, that's not what we're doing. Stand in line like everybody else, okay? There's a beauty when you wait in line to be able to understand something, right? But to your earlier point, you talked about the process, well, you called it a struggle, is what you said. But I heard it as the classic conversation of product versus process or process versus product, however you where you want to put it. Everybody is so hyper focused on the end result. And I'm all for backwards planning, right? I think you have to have a goal in mind to know what you're achieving. But when you get like super fixated on that and it's just like the product, the product, the product, I want to be whole. I want to be healed. I want good friendships. I want a partner. I want this. How you gonna get there? Like it's the process. Sometimes that process is not easy, so you define it as a struggle, but you have to be willing to navigate whatever that process is, good, bad, and indifferent. And then you will realize that maybe I shouldn't be going through this process by myself.
Mm.
Who are my community members? Who are my people? Where's my team? And then you allow those people that were not in the fast pass lane to be with you because they was like, ooh, problems align. What? Like a large? Like, no, like I'm not gonna wait until you figure this out for yourself. So they get on the ride of a lifetime. It's like, ooh, that was fun, but it's temporary. Meanwhile, you still standing in line trying to figure out who the hell Qualls is, right?
Yeah.
So the people that stayed with you, like, I learned a little bit something from you because you decided to be selfless. maybe a little bit, and take time out to just exist with me. That's all I needed, because now, even through our conversation, I might not be saying something to you directly or vice versa, but your presence is a present, as they say, to me in this moment to get something I needed on my journey, in my process, as I navigate my struggle to get to the product. Because as soon as I'm full version Donald, then it's like, oh, I want to thank you and thank you and thank you and everybody else who decided to fast forward life. Like I'm out. So product versus process. I talk to people all the time about it at work, and they're like, oh wow, never thought about that. How? How?
I I've I've become less and less surprised at how many people don't view the world or don't view life in a particular way. It used to really throw me off when I was younger. And I used to talk to my mom and I used to be like, I feel, I used to always just say, I feel different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I don't fit in. And it's slipping my mind right now, but she essentially was saying that you feeling different doesn't have to directly equate to being inferior or superior. Like you're different is just different. Like your normal isn't everybody else's normal. So while you're sitting here thinking that you're different because of what their normal is and they projecting that onto you, your normal is different. So what is normal to you may not be normal for everybody else. And so, when you talk about something that for you, the product versus process part is, if nothing else, like almost inevitable to a certain degree to understand how it applies or how it may fit in life. But for some people, there are really people that just do not think about things like from an outside perspective, outside of their tunnel vision of life and what fits them right now. And yeah, I don't know. I used to be so confused, just like, how are you not like, what exactly are you worried about if you're not thinking of these things or considering these things in your thought process? But I also realized that that ain't my ministry. You know what I'm saying? That ain't got nothing to do with me at the end of the day. So you got it, Marco. Okay, you go ahead and figure out what you need to do, and I'm just worried about me because again, everybody's normals, everybody's way of operation, everybody's thought process is different and it's relative to them. So then when you have people that choose to just exist with you in those times, you realize as time goes on what a blessing that is because there are so many people that don't have the capacity to do that simply
Mhm.
because there aren't a lot of people that are willing to just exist because they can't think outside of their particular normal or what makes sense to them or whatever they've chosen to consider. So it is a huge act when somebody does that for you, and being able to return that tenfold when you've reached your full capacity is a great feeling as well.
Yeah, and I think in terms of self-acceptance, having to learn and understand how you operate in some ways. And Wanda is my therapist's name, so that's who I'm always talking about. Wanda, she ate me up a little bit last week, at this week, matter of fact.
Side note, when you said Wanda the first time, because of the context of what we was talking about, I thought you was talking about Wanda Maximoff from Marvel. I forgot what we was I forgot what exactly we was saying, but it had we was talking about the third eye. And you was like, and it'll punch you. And I started thinking of the Scarlet Witch. I was like, oh, he just made the Scarlet Witch reference. Forgive me. Anyway.
Well, that's what therapists are. They are. They are strong.
No facts though. Truly, that's what
Listen, she be in the sessions with them little fingers, I'll be like, ooh, okay, Wanda.
that.
Why you so loud?
Anyway.
Oh, I done lost my point and got hot. What are we talking about
You
Wanda
you was
for?
you was talking about Wanda and you was talking about she been clocking you. That's what you was saying.
Yes. Oh, yes, 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 yes. She ate me up a little bit this past week because she said, stop taking care of people. And I was like, I ain't gonna say she raised her voice at me, but like she's normally been like very nice and calm. And then she kind of said, she's like, stop taking care of people. And I was like, okay. Then I realized in that moment, right, that I have a tendency to take care of people compared to caring for people. And I think that's the difference in kind of like self-acceptance, like knowing my role or understanding my role that I play in things. Like I always say my aesthetic is like track coach. I cannot, every outfit I wore for like 4 days straight, no matter what variety I had, I looked in the mirror, I said, damn, I'm about to go to practice. Like, how do I shake this? But that's my role, like coach, dad, uncle, mentor, all of those things. And I always feel like I have to take care of other people. Thinking for other people is exhausting, right? So I cannot do that, but I can care for you. So the things that you were saying of like, you just need that person kind of present. Like I understand now in me that I can just care for you and not do too much. I can be present. I can not whatever you need me to do. Like you just know that I have love and concern and understanding for you, your situation, whatever. But I'm not thinking for you. I'm not doing it for you. I can't do that. But I revert back to my old ways and like want to solve somebody's problem and take care of them. We're adults. Everybody can take care of themselves. And if you cannot, and you are, able-bodied and everything, like you can do that on your own. You can figure it out. If you need help, ask, but I cannot volunteer it unnecessarily all the time. So that's something that I have also accepted. Like bring it back a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's real. And I know that we kind of align in this, but that's like so difficult to do. And I think that that's been the difficult part of my self-acceptance journey. Because in the session with my guy, you know what I'm saying, with Big Dog, I say bro and them when I talk about my therapist. But
So
no,
your therapist, Dr. Strange.
I mean, at this point, he ain't have no stone. He ain't have my stone on or nothing. You know what I'm saying? But no, because it was funny because even the activity, like it started with so many values. And even though self-acceptance was the one that stood out, a theme, throughout the last month or so has been like, how are you prioritizing these values in your life? What relationship are you, maintaining with these values as they pertain to how you operate, on a day-to-day basis? And the
Uh-huh.
self-acceptance piece ended up being the overarching thing and the thing that I paid attention to the most, because everything kind of starts from there. If I have not truly accepted my flaws, like I can understand, that I'm not perfect, but if I haven't accepted the ways in which, I'm not perfect, if I haven't accepted my mistakes, if I haven't accepted where I'm at, just in life, things of that nature, then it opens the door for everything that other people, say
Yeah.
to hold more weight, than it should. Because since I haven't accepted the things about me, it's kind of open season and fair game in terms of how it's defined now. And you leave room for other people's opinions and other people's feelings to creep in because you haven't accepted for you and said, no, like I accept that this is where I'm at. This is me. This is how things are, right now, or this is my situation as it currently stands. So that's why it stood out, and I thought it would be interesting talking with you about it because, again, I think the parallels of, not only our dynamic in general, but our age difference and how you're kind of in a space where it always seems like you're about like 3 years ahead of me experience wise, like
Mhm.
things you're going through, things that are happening. It always seems like, okay, I've seen you do this. And then like in 2 or 3 years, I'm right there. And you're like, yeah, I was there. That was a tough season. You got it though. You'll get through, my boy. But but yeah, so I was wondering where you stood on self-acceptance, because I was wondering, like I said before, in this time frame, in this season for you, where have you landed on that? But it seems as if you are kind of, as you've mentioned with a lot of other things, you are secure in the sense of just knowing what you are and what you want to serve you or how you want to serve yourself. So when it comes to, the outside noise or other people, you hear it, you consider it, when necessary. But at the end of the day, you are very, secure in what you've accepted about yourself. So it seems like that makes a lot of things easier when you have that as a base or as a foundation.
Yeah, yeah. I like that word secure because I was gonna say I'm so much happier now, but it's not that I mean, yeah, happy is a byproduct. But it's like, oh, I'm happy. Like, but what does that mean? Like let's figure out but it's secure. I'm so much more secure in my way of thinking, my way of operating, who I am, things I like about myself, the flaws that I have, and I even highlight them, but I've just security. That's very much what it is. Like it's just I'm just me. I exist and just feel very whole now. But I was telling somebody else the other, I've had a lot of conversations with people recently. If you can't tell. Um, I said, you know what? I've said this before, I think to you, but my 30s are what I thought my 20s would be. I just now have money. And like a fuller understanding is not just financial. So I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna grow up when I turn 40 because I think I'm gonna just always be a decade behind in life. And I'm okay with that because now I'm accepting the late bloomer status, you know? Like I almost want to develop late. Like, don't give me the first round of the COVID shots. Let me see if y'all turn green first. Like, let me get on that second or third wave. Like, let's get everybody else front line, and then I can come in. So yeah, let me be a late bloomer, and I'll grow up in my 40s and then the 50s, and that way I can just maintain my youth at this point because it's fine. But yeah, very secure. So yes, shout out to you growing up with a dictionary. Thank you.
That's crazy. I did actually use the dictionary way more than I think the average kid did. Shout out to moms, shout out to Grams for that too. But
Yeah.
my favorite word that I before we go, my favorite word that I learned growing up that I don't think most kids was using. Plethora. Plethora. When I learned that word, oh, I was using it in every situation possible. Wasn't necessary whatsoever. But plethora was one of them words I'm like, ooh, I'm smart. I know something. Cause
Right.
people weren't using plethora in the I was in middle school, early high school. We weren't using plethora just yet. But but yeah, all in all, what you sleep over? Sleep over Keith Lee?
Sleep
Uh,
on.
sleep over Keith Lee. Man, I don't know. Great episode, great authenticity. As you see, we both in the Deweys per usual. Shout out to the gold. You know what I'm saying? If you know, you know. But Jims, as always, a lot of good insight. Shout out to therapy. You know, if you want to go, go. If you're still thinking about it, that's okay. Take your time. If you're in therapy, kudos to you. And outside of that, all things considered, all the messages dropped. I give this episode 8.5 out of 10.
All right. Look like it's time for a cousin walk now.
Hey, that is.
Now you're
Indeed.
talking my
Now you talk. Don't need to be Thanksgiving for a cousin walk. You understand what I'm saying? That can happen after any family function whatsoever, regardless of time of year. But until then, until next episode, we'll catch y'all next time. Peace.